Welcome to segment number 10 of our V-2 build series. In this segment, we'll be applying the decals to the painted model. Let's take a look at the decal sheet that comes with each kit. There are 4 different decal options available on this, but we're going to concern ourselves only with the markings for the tactical V-2 that's on display at the Imperial War Museum in London. There are 4 sets of fin number markings, which will be applied to the sides of each fin. We've got 4 serial numbers, which are, the other 2 are hiding here. Those will be applied to the aft airframe between each set of fins. And then we've got 4 inventory markings. We're only going to be using 3 of those. Applying decals is usually simple, and it really adds a great deal of life and realism to a model. This is where the model is really going to start to pop. It's important though to have the right tools and supplies on hand. So let's go over what we'll need for this step. First, we're going to need the decal sheet itself. We'll also need a small set of scissors to cut each individual marking from the sheet. In addition, we'll need a shallow bowl. I've got a Rubbermaid type bowl here. We're going to fill that with lukewarm water, and we're going to dunk each marking into there for application. We'll also be using a couple of different products from Microscale. The first is called Microset, and it's applied to the surface of the model before the decal is applied to aid in adhesion. If the surface onto which we're applying the marking is not flat or has an irregular surface, we may follow that up with this decal solvent solution called Microsol. We probably won't need that for this particular model, but it's nice to have on hand just in case. A soft paintbrush is also nice to have. We're going to use it to apply the setting solution to the model, as well as adjusting the decal once it's in place. Finally, we'll want a pair of tweezers to dip and retrieve the decals from the water. I've got my trusty curved tip tweezers on hand for this job. Let's start by taking a look at this photo of the London V-2. Note the fact that the airframe join panel is just to the right of the top of the fin marked as number 1, and that 2 of the yellow inventory markings are in line with that fin. Now let's take a look at our model. Here's the fin that will be our number 1 fin. Note that the airframe join line is just to the right of the leading edge of this fin, and also that this side of the airframe lacks the fuel loading ports. Those are over on the opposite side of the airframe. We'll cut out the number 1 fin marking from the decal sheet and dunk one of them, just one, not both, in the water. This is lukewarm water. It's slightly warmer than room temperature, and I placed a single drop of liquid dishwashing detergent in the bottom of the container before I added the water. This will have the effect of lowering the surface tension of the water, allowing both it and the decal to flow a little bit easier. In other words, that process makes the water wetter, and it really makes a difference as we move through it. I'm going to take the water and set it just off camera now at this point. While the decal soaks, we're going to take our paintbrush and dip it into the Microset setting agent. We're going to paint some of that onto the location of the model where the decal is going to go. That's just above the second line of rivets, just above the chain drive cover. So here's our chain drive cover. There's 2 rows of rivets, just above the second row of rivets, and between the 2 vertical detail lines, the panel lines here. We've removed our decal from the water, and I'm going to try to tease it off with the paintbrush. It doesn't seem quite ready yet. I may see with a finger. Yeah, the finger's working much better. Some modelers consider it sacrilege to use a finger like that. I'm going to discard the decal paper. I'll add a little water here. checking the alignment. I want this perfectly vertical with the panel lines that are there. And that looks good. I'm going to follow this up, now that I have it in place, with a little bit more of the setting solution. Just painting that around the edges of the decal. I may tease that just a hair with my tweezer. Oh, very nice. So I have this again on top of the second line of rivets, just above the second line of rivets, above the chain drive cover, centered between these two vertical panel lines. I'm now going to take a tissue, a clean tissue, and I'm going to wick away excess moisture from the edge of the decal. I'm not going to blot the decal itself. I don't want any lint in the tissue to adhere to the surface of this softened decal. We'll let this dry for a little while and we'll move on to our next decal. We now have all of our number markings in place. If you were paying attention, you may have noticed that I mispositioned one and had to go back and do a quick save. We'll let this dry for a little while, probably 45 minutes to an hour. Check them over one more time, and then we'll continue with the serial number markings. We now have all 4 serial number markings in place. We'll let this dry for a little while, and then we'll move on to the British inventory markings. It's now time to place the first of our inventory decals. This is going to go on the number 4 fin. It will be positioned just above the first rivet line, and on this third vertical panel line over from the edge of the fin. So follow the panel lines, 1, 2, 3, right there. Center this directly over that panel line. The lower edge of the yellow circle should actually come down just over the rivets. Because we're going over an irregular surface here, we're going to need to add some of our solvent, the Microsol product. What the Microsol product does is soften the decal. It literally melts it. Depending on how thick the decal is and how irregular the surface detail is, it may take multiple applications for this to work. The important thing is when you're using a solvent solution such as this, do not disturb the decal until it's completely dry. We'll just let this wait for probably 45 minutes or so. While we let the setting solution work on the decal we just installed on the fin, we've gone ahead and installed the 2 remaining inventory labels. These are in a line with fin number 1 at 2 places on the airframe, approximately 90 millimeters above this midpoint brake line and 180 millimeters above that line. So we have the midpoint joint, 90 millimeters is our first inventory decal, and 180 millimeters is our second inventory decal. We'll let those dry, and we'll go on to the final step in the decal process. With all of our decals in place, we have one more task to complete before we can move on. When you apply decals to a model, you have to keep in mind that there's an adhesive on the back of the decal. We're also using a great deal of water here. That adhesive mixes with the water and comes out and adheres to the surface around each decal. What I like to do is take a Q-tip. I like to moisten the Q-tip, and I just like to clean up a little bit around the circumference of each decal before I go any further. It's also a good idea to pick up any stray dust that may have come off of the tissue or the cloth used during the decal step. I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera here, but there's a fair amount of dust coming up on this Q-tip. I'm going to flip the Q-tip around. I'm going to absorb any of the excess water that came off and try to get the model as dry and clean as possible. I'll discard that. There, we've given our model a good cleaning, and we're ready to move on to final assembly.